school education and higher education. And there have been several discussions about it. On these plenary, we thought it would be really good because now when education is on the forefront of all the three conventions are talking about it. There is a greater realization that that is the way to go forward. But what needs to be done when it comes to higher education? What is the roadmap? What are the possibilities? So that's the purpose of today's discussion. Before CEE has been involved in higher education since a long time and on various fronts. And we will talk about it as we proceed. But one of the very interesting initiative, very unique initiative that we have is we have a journal of ESD, JESD, Journal for Education for Sustainable Development. And that is a unique journal in the sphere of ESD. And Dr. Nambiar, Dr. Preeti Nambiar, who is the Senior Program Director at CEE, she has been looking at the journal. She is the editor for the journal. And I would like to invite her first to briefly tell about the journal, and also Dr. Catherine Cole, who has been, for this issue, has been associated. So I'll hand over to Dr. Nambiar.
Thanks, Janki. In 2005, at the start of the decade of Education for Sustainable Development, we launched the Journal of Education for Sustainable Development. So actually, we're going to be celebrating 20 years this year. Just struck me. So what is the journal? The journal is a peer-reviewed journal that publishes empirical as well as research articles, reports, and essays relating to all aspects of the emerging field of education for sustainable development. It was emerging in 2005, and it's probably still emerging, as it is practiced in formal primary and secondary schools, colleges and universities, community organizations, government agencies, businesses, and non-profit organizations around the world. At least that was the intention. But we do look forward to more representation in the journal, because that's, while we would have liked to have all these people also involved in thinking about ESD, we still find that a lot of the research is quite piecemeal and scattered and not entirely thought through. Most of it is action research, which is then put into a research format. And therefore, I think the issue really is the quality of ESD research. So that's something that I wanted to flag, and I think we really need to think seriously about the quality of research in whatever we do, and also anticipate or ask research questions while we are doing action research. So I think that's something that I really want to flag, and I think all of you, working in different workshops and attending different sessions, if you do find areas where people have flagged these concerns, I think it would be great if you went home and did something about it. And we would love to hear from you and to review your papers. And JESD does a double-blind review process, so we're pretty picky about what we choose. We basically are inviting articles on the field of environment education, which pioneered much of the work in ESD, as well as from all diverse disciplines, as part of the urgent need to integrate ESD thinking and practice into every aspect of human activity. So it's quite important that we get people in different disciplines to start thinking about how ESD can be infused into whatever it is that they do. So the journal specifically invites research articles on pioneering work in integrating ESD into disciplines in ways that challenge the traditional silo approach to education and practice. So we really need to break this compartmentalized thinking across disciplines, but we have to start with some research on a lot of areas. Even in the sessions that I did today, which is focused on interpretation, we were talking about the real need to consolidate research in this area to demonstrate the link between communicating effectively and actually changing behavior and attitudes and inspiring action. So I'd like all of you to think seriously about it, to raise the quality of ESD research internationally. Thank you very much.
Now I call upon Catherine Cole to talk about the upcoming issue, which is especially new, and their team has been editing it. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a spoiler alert. We will be bringing out a special issue of the Journal for Education for Sustainable Development. And Charles Hopkins and I have been invited by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Many of you may have heard of them. It's also an organization that works globally and closely with the UN. And while in 2022, we were extremely happy about the Transforming Education Summit. With the pre-summit, wonderful outcomes like the Greening Education Partnership, also a global coalition working on the digitalization and the education aspects of that. However, when the world met last year during the Summit of the Future, the word education just made it 20 times into the overall text, and we were not quite seen, especially education for sustainable development wasn't even mentioned. So we have been working on commentaries perspective on the role of ESD for more than quality education, because education for sustainable development as an element of quality education, which I think we have very much established in the last 2 days, and also many of us have believed that before. But also ESD has a fundamental role to play for all other SDGs. And this special issue that will be hopefully coming out in March, April of 2025 will address this question of the universal and cross-cutting role that ESD, more of a means of implementation, not just a tool, but a means of implementation for all of the SDGs will play. And we have a number of wonderful contributors from UNESCO, from many universities, among them again prime partner Okayama University, and we really look forward to all of you reading this, and thanks again to the journal, to CEE India for working with us, and yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nambiar and Catherine, for this introduction to and discussing briefly about a research space where ESD articles can be, papers and research can be published. Now, moving forward further in our today's session, the session consists of, as I say, bringing culture of sustainability in higher education institutes. So we are talking of the culture of sustainability and not just one component of it, but taking university as a system, talking about its curriculum, talking about textbooks, talking about pedagogies, and also what is that which transforms the campus itself as a sustainable campus. So to deliberate upon these whole different aspects of making the university sustainable and bringing that culture of sustainability, we have two panels today. First panel, which is going to talk about what are the curricular approaches to reorienting the higher education towards sustainability, and the panel would be moderated by Dr. Trideep sir. So Dr. Trideep Sorat is Provost Sept. May I call upon sir? And I will also call upon the other panelists as and then hand over the panel. Yes. He's also CEE, that's what he said. Yes, that is very true. He is a part of us. Otsufumi, sir, Professor Otsufumi Yokai, may I please call upon you, sir? Catherine Cole, co-chair holder of the UNESCO chair in reorienting the education towards sustainability at York University. Professor Thomas Hoffman, head of geography department at the teacher training and honorary professor of ESD. Dr. Iraq Barucha, director Bharati Vidyapit, and Sudhanshu Jangir sir, director Indian Institute of Sustainability. Yeah. So over to you, sir. Tradip sir, over to you for your panel.
Good afternoon. I'm not going to be between you and the speakers. What I'm going to request each of the panelists is to self-regulate. Also, while you're doing that, please introduce yourselves in the context of the work that we're talking about, in the issues that we're talking about, rather than me flatly reading out who you are and what you do. I think autobiographical mode serves us very well in most cases. So it's over to you. I will intervene when I need to and try and sum it up. So thank you.
All right, I try to be flexible. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. I'm Atsumi Yokoi, Vice President of Okayama University for Global Engagement. At the same time, UNESCO Chair in Research Education for Sustainable Development, ESD. But at the same time, I work for United Nations University as Director of a subcommittee on sustainable campus, newly established United Nations University SDGs University platform, bringing together more than 30 Japanese leading universities to advance SDGs. Well, can I start? Okay. How many times? 7. Okay, again, I try to be flexible. And in accordance with Indian culture. Okay, 7 minutes. Okay, I try to use a PowerPoint slide, but Okayama University is a typically traditional national comprehensive university established in 1870. We have more than 150 history, and also we were launched as medical science school at that time toward a comprehensive national university in Japan. Please, next slide. And this is a brief history, particularly in terms of ESD. In 2005, as she mentioned before, this is the beginning year of decade of ESD. So Okayama region was also approved by the United Nations University as very first regional center of expertise on ESD in 2005. So this year, we also celebrate 20 years anniversary of our RCE Okayama. Thank you very much. And afterward, in 2007, Okayama UNESCO Chair in ESD was approved by UNESCO headquarters, which means Asia's pioneering UNESCO Chair in ESD. And then we really worked together for ESD in a whole regional manner and in a whole institution approach for more than a decade. And then we received UNESCO ESD award in 2016, and Okayama City itself was awarded UNESCO Learning City Award in 2017. Next slide, please. Our activity and reputation achievements were newly published by University World News recently, last September. So if you have time, please have a look, and maybe you can find out, explore more about our legacy and activities. Next slide. But today, I would like to talk about university management in terms of sustainability, because I have experienced for just 10 years, since 2015, as one of the senior leaders of this university, executive vice president of vice president to advance sustainability and SDGs. But how? So today, I'd like to share with you 3 important theoretical framework. First one, diffusion of innovation framework to involve any stakeholders on campus, students, of course, faculty members, and staff. And second framework is integration between adaptive operation system and, I would say, traditional bureaucratic hierarchical university operation system. How to integrate between the two in order to mobilize transdisciplinary education and research projects on campus and beyond. And final theoretical framework is, well, scale of impact model from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, from Boston. How to mobilize scale of impact from local, campus, city, national, and global level. How to connect between the scales. So I really try to harness 3 theoretical frameworks to mobilize sustainability on campus for 10 years as vice president. So I'd like to share briefly about our experience of university management. Please, next slide, please. This is first theoretical framework, diffusion of innovation model from Stanford University. You know what? Most of faculty members, I would say, are not very much interested in SDGs. This is true reality, you know. And also active resistance of external influence, including SDGs, Paris agreements. Most of faculty members love their own discipline. So it's very strong challenge, huge challenges, you know, how to involve such a kind of mass of faculty members who are not interested in sustainability SDGs very much. So I try to use this model. Please click. Please click button. Click. Yes. Yeah. Oh no. Please. Back to the slide. Yes. In the first 5-term plan from 2017 and 2022, we try to focus on innovators, early adopters, which means 50% of stakeholders on campus. Just focusing on 50%. But it took for 5 years. And then afterward, from 2023 to 2028, we are now transition process to involve early majority and then late majority. But it's so huge challenges to involve early majority and late majority. But later on, I briefly explain about this, how to involve early majority, particularly. Please, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next, please, yes. Next slide, please. Okay. This is a strategy based on the diffusion of innovation model. This is a typical university culture. There are a lot of silos between the faculties, departments, no connectivity between faculty. This is seriously true reality at any university across the world, I would say. But how to connect between the silos, how to break down the barrier. But anyway, click, please, just one click. Okay, please stop. Stop, please. So present in there, and we launched a brand new SDG promotion headquarters, directly under the president. And then we launched the SDG Promotion Planning Council to co-create, co-craft strategy and concept ideas between faculty members from 11 faculties and 8 graduate schools to discuss further. And then we also launched the platform for the future, which means bringing together 30 years old and 40 years old faculty members and staff to discuss future we want for Okayama University, which is the body of next generation of leaders at Okayama University. And then, click please, yes, try to connect between decision-making process president, SDG promotion headquarters, and SDG promotion planning council, how to pick up their ideas from next generation leaders, 30 years and 40 years faculty members, having a lot of ideas and thoughts from 11 faculties and graduate schools. And then, click please. Click please. Student. Every year, Okayama University, has compulsory subject in terms of SDGs for first year of students. Roughly speaking, 2,000 students coming to the campus actually. So, but compulsory subject, particularly for SDGs, is very much important for very first year students to be familiar with SDGs. But after that, we found out many more students join the forces of SDG activities. Then we launched SDG ambassador system. Right now we have 300 ambassadors, particularly to advance SDGs. So this is very important body, which means innovator and early adapter from students to be involved in the decision-making process by connecting between, click please. Yes, like that. Connecting SDG ambassadors, a platform for the future, and board members. So this is transforming university typical culture, breaking down the barrier between the silo to mobilize sustainability on campus. But it took more than 5 years, particularly for innovators and early adopters. But this is a simple but very tough and challenging process, but we made it actually for 5 years. Click please. Click please. This is a picture, by the way. Light up, platform for the future, bringing together 30 years and 40 years old faculty members to discuss further SDGs. But they are very busy for their own research. But every single dean of departments and graduate school pick up promising, talented faculty members to be involved in platform for the future. And left bottom is SDG ambassador. As you can see, high school students from local level also join the forces as student ambassador to discuss with university students. So this is also very important body as innovator and early adapter of students, as decision maker to be involved in decision making process of the university. Next, please. And this is a second action in accordance with second strategic framework, how to integrate between bureaucratic hierarchical traditional university operation system and adaptive agile university operation system. I, as a director, launched a brand newly global engagement office as really adaptive agile operation system integrated into traditional university hierarchical. Okay, 1 minute. I try to adapt. But this is a second action. But the end of global engagement office is really agile adaptive newly operation system to be integrated into hierarchical traditional bureaucratic model. So you can imagine tree. Tree has leaves and trunk. Trunk means bureaucratic traditional hierarchical university system, but leaves is very sensitive, adaptive, agile. But we need dual mode of system, which are very much important to mobilize sustainability. So tree system very important, which means integration between adaptive agile operation system and bureaucratic hierarchical university system. So I launched the Global Engagement Office to connect between United Nations initiative like SDGs and also into university mission and vision and strategy, how to integrate between the two. So Global Engagement Office, so to speak, bridge and also adaptive operation system. Next, please. Last one, this is a brand new idea to advance target 4.7, how to integrate between environmental education, global citizenship education, and ESD as a foundation for all SDGs. So recommended by UNESCO. So Okayama University and also South Korean universities and UNESCO CEE from South Korea work together for such a kind of integration as a foundation for all SDGs. And as charter, briefly speaking, as ethical framework for sustainable development, this is also recommended by UNESCO. As charter is ethical framework for planetary citizenship. I would say planet citizenship over global citizenship. So Okayama University tried to integrate between ethical framework as charter and global citizenship from South Korea and the ESD, of course, from Japan. So as a foundation for SDGs. Okay, I must stop here. So welcome your question afterward. But thank you very much for listening my speech. And yep, thank you.
You can see the skills of higher education people organizing themselves. And we always need a moment when we're self-governed. Yeah, I think first of all, as in higher education, if we look at the situation that we often proudly say, we have been at the table since the early 80s, well, apparently if higher education had such a strong role, we should have done a little bit more, should have done something differently. And with that, I can do my favorite introduction of myself. My name is Catherine, I'm a lawyer, and I really don't like nature, which is honest and from my heart, very, very true. Despite that, I'm the UNESCO co-chair in reorienting education towards sustainability at York University in Toronto, Canada. And I'm still, although I really don't understand it, but I'm still trying to do something because I feel and I know it is right, even if I don't get along with any kind of creature beyond being furry, 4 feet and eyes to the front. But yeah, I'm really trying my best. And if we're looking into what is happening in our higher education institutions. We agree higher education has an important role to play. Yes, and we have to catch up because we haven't done as much as possible, or we may have not been heard enough. That's the other opportunity. But we're looking into a small portion of the world's population, roughly around 10, maybe 12%. The numbers are fortunately going up. Those are the people that will be graduating from universities. Those are the people that are making the decisions in the world. A lot of them are also part of the top 1% in the world that have the most money. And I wonder how Elon Musk's supervisor feels about what the guy is doing these days. I'm not sure if it was part of his higher education. So we need to be self-critical. In an article a year ago, we tried to come up with 3 elements that we really felt that leaders for a sustainable future, characteristics that were important for leaders that could bring us, that could first of all envision a sustainable future beyond the getting away and what we want to get away from towards a positive vision, a tangible vision of the future. And what would be the 3 most important characteristics? And between researchers from Norway, Costa Rica, South Africa, Japan, Germany, and Canada, we came up with 3 elements. It was systems thinking, being able to work in partnership, and values-based leadership. If we're going through these 3, systems thinking, most of our programs, especially undergraduate programs, are organized in courses, credit points, you got to write a paper here, you got to write a paper there. It's not quite a holistic picture that we are building in undergraduate training. Partnership, often students need to work alone because we want to judge this one student. Very few projects are actually together, giving the opportunity to learn how to collaborate. And also the question of values. What are the values that we are teaching in higher education? Often, and especially I at this point live in a paid-for education system, the value is mostly, is my investment worth it? And not can I be one day not only the best in, the best at, but can I be the best for? Can I be somebody that does something for others? Have I ever learned deep thinking? Have I questioned where my assumption, my feelings, where all of these things come from? This is the space of higher education. This is what it was thought for, and this is what we need these days. Around the world, we're seeing the small disciplines, the small faculties, the humanities being shut down because they're not making enough money, despite research telling us that graduates from the humanities will be the ones that will be dealing the best with uncertain futures. So here again, here's the question: what is the responsibility of higher education, and what is the responsibility to our graduates? If we're still looking from the aspect of our graduates, we're looking at our teachers, our educators in higher education. They're supposed to provide a transformative learning journey. They themselves are often almost entrepreneurial, brought in course directors for one course, have to teach the next one a year later. They're very difficult to position. How can they create that transformative learning journey that consists of learning about the facts, having the skills to deal with them, like critical skills, problem solving, learning about the realities on the ground, being exposed to realities, learning to understand people that are living in different realities like us, and then even considering to do something about those realities, because in that moment when we understand what people are up to, the world starts mattering to us. And the transformative learning journey that is needed in higher education often not provided. Going further, living in uncertainty again. We still think in professions. Although today's 6-year-old kids, we know 5% of the jobs that they're going to be doing in 2050 plus, but we still have this focus on preparing for professions and not for broader, we don't know what for, but you will be fine situations. And it sounds funny, but this is what we're doing. We're trying to make people as adaptable, as flexible, and also society-oriented, and that is not happening in higher education. And we need to question ourselves, why are we not doing it? While we're priding ourselves in academic freedom, freedom of research, why are we not providing more research, stronger research that says this is what we need to do? And then as a next step, go ahead and explain that research, not in our usual terms in that we use to talk to one another in our peer-reviewed journals, but find the language and find the ways how we can communicate that this is the evidence that we can provide, how we can make this world better in equipping the graduates of higher education with the skills and with the competencies that they will need to survive in the world that we actually can't really describe yet, because no one really knows what is coming. One quick example is the idea that one idea that a university is trying to do, that is the question of a communiversity. Turning it around. Making it a question of every student, not how did you do in your program, but what did you do for others in your program? What did you learn that you already used for others? You wrote a paper, beautiful, you got a good grade for it, even better. But what did this paper do for the community around us, for the community out there, for the global community? How can you make a difference already as a student? for the world out there, for the people that you may never see, for the places that you may never get, for the places that you never get to see. But those are the idea. This is the idea of a communiversity, where you have the ability to put the community first and then derive the teaching and learning from what is needed for the community to understand the community, do something for the community, what knowledge is needed in the community, and what can we do to make everything better for the surrounding communities, for the global communities, and what is your role as a student. And a higher education graduate from a communiversity would have that sense of being someone, having the confidence, being able to make a difference, but not just a difference for their own life, for their own livelihoods, but making a difference for the people and for the communities around them, and be part of what we are all imagining for a sustainable development. Higher education has a lot of work to do, and I hope we can do a portion of it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That will not start with 1 minute. Can you please? Yeah, and the next one already. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Marion von Dönhoff, a famous but late German journalist, once said, "Real freedom means to sit between many chairs or all chairs." In that sense, I'm a very free person because I sit at least among or between 5 or 6 chairs. And throughout the next 7 minutes, I will put some light on 3 of these chairs. I will start, or that is because I work parallelly at 2 different universities. My main job is at a teacher training center, and I'm also working with 2 ministerial institutions in the field of education for sustainable development policy, climate change policy, and all these things. The first example, the first glimpse, the first chair, not an UNESCO chair, is the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, KIT, a technical university from its beginning. Carl Benz, the inventor of the car, studied there 150 years ago. And if you look to what this Institute of Technology University, KIT, is doing, you will see that the president of the university encourages all members of the university to qualify for teaching sustainability or sustainable development. But there is no obligation. It is up to you. That is one case. If you look how many people do that, take that chance, that might be around 50%. The others do not. But that does not mean that ESD or SD ideas are not present at that university. Not at all. Because if you change the perspective and if you look to what is going on, what are recent developments, you will find that there is a KIT sustainability strategy for the whole university, that we do have a huge number. I only mentioned some of them. We do have, in the meanwhile, a huge number of newly founded institutes. By example, KIT School for Sustainability, Innovation Campus Sustainability, Joint Programming Initiative Connecting Climate Knowledge for Europe. And of course, we also, with this, have an increasing number of possible sustainability-specific study and degree programs. So that is a thing. It is much more in the content itself and in the direction of the various scientific disciplines of this technical university, where sustainability is given, and the step beyond being aware of what is necessary is turned already in technologies. And that is a big step and a great pleasure to work at that university. May I ask you for the next slide? We go to my next chair, which is the Leuphana University Lüneburg, where I hold a honorary professorship for ESD. This university is the most advanced sustainability university in Germany at all. They have sustainability, SD, ESD in their DNA. It is definitely their focus. It is the only one which is clearly structured and clearly directed into this direction. The central topics and approaches are interdisciplinarity. We do often talk about interdisciplinarity. What we do not do is to think a bit more differentiated about this interdisciplinarity. You can have an interdisciplinary study between history, politics, and a language or sociology. That is fine, that it is interdisciplinary. You can have interdisciplinarity between biology, physics, and chemistry. That is also fine, it is interdisciplinary. But the crucial interdisciplinarity we need is that one which covers the two, or which bridges the two dimensions from sciences to societal aspects. And that is finally very clearly geography as the only one which covers both from the very beginning. It is about innovation, it's interculturality, digitality, which is a big field where research is done and conducted. And if you look to this simple program, graph, which I created yesterday, it says that whatever you are studying at Leuphana University, you will go through 1 or 2 semesters of sustainability studies. So whether you become a lawyer like Katrin, or whether you become an economist, or whether you become a mathematician, you will always get in touch with sustainability. So that is the horizontal layer in green, while you at the same time can do sustainability studies, which is the vertical version over the various semesters. And finally, not to extend my time too much, I will show you or give you a bit of insight, a bit of idea of my main working field, which is the Teacher Training Center at Karlsruhe. May I ask you to take the next slide? You see there that, and just click one more, please. There should be a frame. Yeah, we are concentrating on this central part. So if you want to become a teacher in this part of Germany, you have to study at university. You will be busy with scientific context of the subjects you study. Of course, you will also most likely come in touch with sustainable development, at least in quite a number of subjects. And you will get some first ideas in didactics, pedagogy, and methodology. Then in the pre-service teachers training phase, which is the central part and framed in that red color, there is didactics and pedagogy in the center. And what we do is that we go, of course, along the syllabus, and the syllabus in Baden-Württemberg is very clearly directed into ESD in the meanwhile. We have a layer which we call leading principles, which is above the level of the single subjects, and the subjects have to contribute to these leading principles, and one of them is sustainable development. So you always have to think about what could be my contribution to realize ESD with my portion, and what might other colleagues or representatives of other subjects contribute. We do have a special ESD day where we assure that everybody gets in a core training at least. Those who do that do not have an official qualification, but they can. So there is, in the meanwhile, there are quite a number of training programs to qualify the lecturers, and therefore to give it further and to discuss and develop the abilities and competencies with the young colleagues who are going to teach for the future. was a little light on 3 of these different chairs, and I go back to my freedom in between them. Thank you.
Sorry? It is also live in the YouTube, so they can't hear you. Okay, so they can't see. They can't hear you. Okay. Okay, so I've nearly finished in any case. These are basically some of the global challenges that we are now going to be faced with. Next, please. Next, please. Right, so this is what you look at. If you look at the undergraduate course today, even for the undergraduate course, there are sectors which will have to be attended to. And once you go into the postgraduate sectors of the undergraduate separate courses, at a pinch, I got 30 sections of work there that can give you job opportunities today. I only stopped at 30 because the slide ran out of space. But we now have to look at this kind of a thing, because how do we get them otherwise jobs? And what sort of jobs do they get? And there is a huge, huge gamut of people who are looking for jobs with an environmental background, but with certain specific things, like industry. And I think industry is going to be the next big place where people who have looked at education for sustainable development will have to fill in those gaps, because that's what industry needs today. And that's where the jobs will come from. There's another sector. We've talked a lot about landscape ecology and landscape change, land use change. But really what we now need is landscape economics. And I recently have had a chance to talk to a very, very well-known economist. And I said, how do you as an economist address this? And he said, it's a very complex question, and environmentalists are the best people to answer it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very good evening. First of all, thank you, CE, for inviting me over here. It is a great honor. So my name is Sudhanshu Zangid. I work for Indian Institute of Sustainability, which is a first of its kind institute in sustainability established by Gujarat University 4 years back. Basically, I'm a practitioner. I came into academics 4 years back only. I was working for French multinational. I lived in Europe for many years. So when you talk about, I want to talk about sustainability in India, and specifically this curricular approach. So, you know, India is a very unique country because we Indians can talk Israel and Iran together, and we are the only country we can talk Russia and USA together. So for us, when I came into academics, I found that sustainability in our country is a combination of 4 P. The first P is the people, second P is the policy, third P is the professionalism, fourth P is the partnership. But the first P, people, is very important because that is something. When I came into academics the 4 years back, when we established this institution, I found that Gen Z, which is quite far from this people-centric approach. So what did we do? That when we started our first MBA program, I introduced one subject called social business. And what did we do? We are partnered with GLPC, Gujarat Livelihood Promotion Company. And we have asked our students that one SSG you have to adopt, and for next 2 years, you have to give them all kind of advice so that you understand what actually people are looking for. This is a small kind of approach, really help, you know, the students to understand that actually where is the gap, where are the gap exist in the society. For example, another subject which we introduce, that is during the summer internship, it is obligatory to do internship with community-based organization or cooperatives or SSGs, so that they understand where is the gap. At the same time, like for example, Catherine was talking about community. The community is something very, very important when you talk about sustainability in a country like India. Second thing is the policy. So what did we do? We have partnered with Niti Aayog, which is the planning commission, the government of India. We have partnered with Labasna. We have partnered with many institutions across the world. So our student can understand how to talk with the policy makers, because that is something very, very important when you are talking, either you talk in business, you talk in anywhere as an academician. So we introduced one subject called, you know, how to draft a letter or how to drafting with legislatures. So you wouldn't believe, sometimes we have asked that, okay, this is the problem existing to Meghalaya, so you should write letter to one MLA of Meghalaya and you should address this issue. So this is something which we did. Regarding this third P, which is the professionalism and the partnerships. So which is something very unique. So we have partnered with Kashmir University. In India, we can learn a lot of things about the sustainability. For example, across the country, we never actually, when I came to academics, I found that we never, as a Kashmir or Kanyakumari or let's say that Northeast, we came together and we thought about sharing the sustainable practices. For example, from Northeast, we can learn a lot of water conservation practices, which can, we can do a lot of business development as well. So I asked my students to go to Ladakh. So we have partnered with University of Ladakh, 30 students from our university or institute, they went to Ladakh, they spent 1 month there. So they understand what possible they can do together. And that is something very, very important when you are talking about this professionalism or this sustainability in our country. In our country, it never happened that 50 students from Kashmir last year, they came to our campus and they spent 1 month. And they were surprised because they thought, okay, this kind of development that can also happen. But at the same time, we also train that development and environment need to go all together. So, for example, next week only the 30 students from Meghalaya, they are coming to my campus, and then in April, for 40 students from Gujarat University, they are going to Meghalaya. So that people can understand where are these P really exist. And that's how I designed the subject. For example, the first MBA program, because I'm a practitioner, and I found that most of the times MBA program, they are finance or marketing, but actually that is a really sustainable when you are talking about. So the first MBA program which we have launched, that is agriculture entrepreneurship and value chain management. Today we are talking about in India agriculture and fertilizer, which is a 40% affecting the greenhouse emission. So what did we do? This was the course which is the need of the hour, and we try to bring most of the the farmers, the son of the farmers who can participate into this program. Second program which we have introduced, that is called Sustainable International Business and Foreign Trade, because sustainability will sustain when there is a business. Neither there will be only talk. So by taking such kind of steps, we have tried to redesign the curricular approach, which was a typical traditional approach. The second, one of the steps which we have done, whenever the PhD, we introduce PhD into sustainability. So we are the only institute that was launched 4 years back. So in first batch there were 7 students. So I asked them, okay, you go to the villages, go to anywhere in the country and come with the problem. I'm not, please don't work for the publication, because you are going to spend next 3 or 4 years of your life, and the PhD, nobody really cares about the publication. There are so many publications, but can you really contribute in the ecosystem of the country? Can you really contribute into the ecosystem of the sustainability, which is the really need? So for example, one of my PhD scholar who is here, so now he is studying that how natural farming is impacting the sociology of the village, so that people can understand that natural farming can really bring the value. So just to tell you that that's how we are practicing sustainability in our institute, and we have partnered globally. We have partnered with Labasna, we have partnered with the University of Glasgow, so that we can also exchange the knowledge, not only with in the countryside, but also across the globe. And even we are happy that last year we are sending UG students to CEE as well, to understand that how CEE is really working. So they are always happy to come over here. So thank you very much. So it is a really great honor. So last but not least, when you are talking about reorienting higher education, one thing I also want to tell you about the practice. So I found that there is too much governance existing into this higher education system, so which is taking too much time, So that is also not sustainable. So in our institute, people are empowered to take the decision. Even my PhD scholars, I have empowered them, okay, you take a call, and because tomorrow they will be the assistant professor, they will be associate professor, they will be the professor. That is something very, very important. And one more thing which we also introduce, people sometimes miss the humanities, the department of what we call arts. So that is something really play a very important role when you talk about the sustainability in the next decade, because AI and machine learning will replace many things, but that cannot replace humanities. So I ask all the students that you should go sometime into Department of Languages and talk with them, and then come with the idea how can we contribute into their ecosystem. So that's how we are doing. So because I'm a practitioner, and every day I put efforts that how we can help in terms of sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just let me very briefly lay the scale of the problem and therefore the opportunity before us. Roughly, we have 1,200 universities in our country, 12,000 standalone institutions, and 45,000 colleges, teaching 44 million students, which is half the size of your country. Exactly the size of your country, largely. So we're teaching continents in 21 languages. What are we doing? Is it conceivable that we have a common approach? Is it conceivable that we have a syllabi that can be rolled out even across one state? Do we even have the terms available to us to think in Gujarati or in Hindustani? Because the terms in Hindustani about all of these things are very different from the way I conceptualize them in Gujarati. So the elementary work required to roll out a syllabi of any kind, forget environment and sustainability, any kind of syllabi, to roll out a uniform syllabi, except in cases where you have a fixed textbook which you then translate into multiple languages is really a challenge. So that's one nature of the problem that we're looking at. The other nature of the problem is in this entire notion of the syllabi that we work with. Syllabi, or forms of knowledge which are constituted as a textbook, have one characteristic. They have to represent a common consensus about the state of knowledge in that field. Now, when there is no consensus about what constitutes knowledge about sustainability, environment, or even ethics, or even the notions of permanence, equity, justice that we've been talking about, we need to change what constitutes a syllabus. Because if we're looking for a consensus in a syllabus, something that we all agree to, we are not going to be able to achieve it. So, by its very nature, this syllabi will have to be quarrelsome. It will have to accommodate doubts, it will have to accommodate quarrels, it will have to accommodate skepticism of a very deep nature. It will also have to only pose problems and not allow us to find answers in every instance. So we're looking at a very different notion of what constitutes a syllabi in this case. The institutions that Professor Anup Singh runs and Professor Ravi ran or I run are very privileged. I mean, I have 1,800 students. We have the ability to do things on a much smaller, more controlled way. Let me present a doom scenario to you. I'm not generally given to pessimism. I'm very happy in my disposition. One question that we will in India need to ask, and I'm not saying that the world needs to ask, we in India will need to ask is whether higher education institutions are viable. Forget the question of sustainability, viability. All of those who run institutions of the kind that we do will tell you that we are not viable in the long run. State-run institutions are going to be in a very difficult situation. The cost of education is more or less similar in an institution in which I teach, in which Professor Anup Singh teaches, or in Gujarat University, or in the School of Architecture in Delhi. The cost of education is the same. In some cases, we are subsidizing students to a very large extent. In other cases, we are not. They're paying what you would call a fair market rate. Even then, with very large subsidy that the state provides for higher education, most students go out with a debt. We are aware of the debt problem when we speak of higher education in North America or in parts of Europe. In India, we don't talk about it because this debt is absorbed by the family. It's not a student debt, it is seen as the debt that a family incurs. Higher education is becoming unviable, increasingly so. And it becomes increasingly unviable if the graduates who come out of it are unemployable. Not just they are unemployed, but they are unemployable. So we are looking at a very, very difficult scenario in India, within which we must think of questions of environment, of the present, of the future, of sustaining our societies, our ways of life, our aspirations, because we are going to be an aspiring society. We do wish to grow. We do wish to be as rapacious as anybody else and as consumerist as anybody else. And if you're going to tell me that it's my moral obligation not to do so, I'm not going to listen to you. So within that, what is it that we can do? Some approaches which have been tried out before us has really been to say, can you, rather than instill a separate syllabi, one more course which says, I'm going to teach you SDGs, and you don't need to teach SDGs. They're not important. But we're going to teach you to think about the questions of sustainability, is through what the NID called and what other institutions of design and architecture and engineering called the problem-solving method, which is to say, can we help students formulate questions? Can we teach them methodologies by which they, one, formulate questions, try and find multiple set of answers, and arrive at solutions? In each of these, the questions of sustainability, of economy, of permanence or not, because some solutions don't necessarily need to be permanent. Some can be very contingent solutions that we find. But one way in this very diverse landmass and institutional landscape in which we function, the only common thing that we have is that as people, as members of communities, as people who work with our hands and our minds, we have the capacity to pose questions and try and find answers. The only proper syllabi that we could actually think of, which would work across disciplines, institutions, languages, and economies of scale, would be the problem-solving method. That is something Indian universities have abandoned a long time ago. So the real challenge is, and that's something that, there are institutions in Gujarat which do that. There are institutions elsewhere which do that. But they're able to do that because we're looking at a much smaller scale. Any solution which is not at scale in India is not a sustainable solution. And I'll stop there. Thank you.
We can take a couple of questions, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
When you say a couple means
2. Yes, certainly 2. 2 brief questions.
The ones who are aspiring to do a PhD is a different sector. Are we going to be able to at least give a certain amount of skills at the university level where they will get jobs? And I think we don't look sufficiently at that. So in the sustainability sector, are there a growing, I think there are a growing number of jobs which will come up, which will just need certain skills. I think it's very specialized, but there will be these people who will be able to get jobs. My basic concern has always been, will my students get an adequate job with an adequate salary? I think it'll work.
has in 2023 adopted a new recommendation that includes a list of competencies. Among them are collaboration skills, problem solving, critical thinking, mitigation skills, etc. I don't know them all by heart. But these are the skills that our education systems, beginning in 2026, will be reporting on every 4 years. So this is a list of skills that I highly suggest to consider. Not only do they recommend or do they reflect the learning outcomes that have been proven to be very suitable to equip students to not only deal with the uncertainties and with the challenges that we're facing today and will be facing tomorrow, but students also appear to be feeling empowered to deal with them. So I suggest to look into the list of competencies of UNESCO. They will be hitting us sooner or later. Thank you.
What you just said was exactly the idea I had in my mind when the question came up. I also thought, first of all, let's talk about what do you mean when you say competences. It means the handling of knowledge in a given situation. And the key competences set up by UNESCO 2017 for the first time and now obviously reviewed. They do have quite a number of very core competencies described. Katrin mentioned already some: critical thinking, systemic thinking, anticipatory thinking, strategic competence, and some other. So the best education for those who are afterwards seeking for a job is to give them not only the task to write a thesis which finally repeats knowledge, but to give them a problem, and they have to solve this problem along the competencies. Because with these competencies, which are described as key competencies by UNESCO, you can do anything from bank robbery to creating a sustainable future. You simply have to set the right aim or goal to this, but it is finally the enabling of an active person in favor of a common development. And as long as we do have a common sense about this development, this common development, in the sense of sustainability, then they first of all get educated in the sense of handling and acting and reliable and responsible young persons, and even have a clear direction where to go to.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Please.
Okay, I will share with you latest progress in Japan. Japan also, huge barrier in terms of language, the Japanese language. So ESD competency is very important, but in Japan, intercultural competence is also very important. How to integrate between intercultural competence and ESD competence. This is the first step. And second step, actually transforming education process from the government of Japan happened actually from this year, 2025. So non-cognitive abilities is very important, non-cognitive abilities. So interpersonal skill also involved in such a kind of abilities, competency. How to promote non-cognitive intelligence or abilities, competence. Beyond AI, for example, artificial intelligence, so we human beings develop more non-cognitive intelligence or abilities. How to connect between ancestral intelligence and artificial intelligence toward Earth intelligence. So we need more non-cognitive abilities and also ESD competence and intercultural competence. So this is the latest progress from Okayama University and national level and global society. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have, please come. We would like to thank all our panelists for being here and felicitate it with a beautiful traditional case. Thank you. And can I call upon the next panel for this session? Without taking much time, may I please invite Dr. Charles Hopkins, UNESCO Chair for York University, Professor Kichisan Oyasu, Director, Education, Cooperation Department, Asia Pacific Center, Cultural Center for UNESCO, Dr. Presha Ramsarup, Director at the Center for Researching Education and Labor, Dr. Anup Singh, Director, Journal Nirma University, Dr. Ravi Singh, Provost, Adani University, and Sri Kartikeya Sarabhai, Director, CEE. So may I now invite, without taking much time, may I now invite our first panel for this channel, for this panel, Charles Hopkins sir, to give his remarks on the subject, how do we bring this culture of sustainability and how do we make campus sustainable.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. In the last session, we were largely talking about teaching, but went beyond that into some other issues. I'd like to make a couple of points, actually three points, but let me start with a couple of remarks around the teaching. The big issue with teaching is that it's our most educated countries that have created the greatest problems. And so the idea of simply perfecting what we have been doing is not really an option for sustainable development. So we have to begin with that kind of a premise. But if we are going to start with these new competencies and new vision and so on, the great issue in teaching is how do you reach everyone? The structure of the university is, do you create a school of environment or you know, this kind of thing? How do you reach them all, especially when they're coming in, but when they are leaving? How do you put together all these different bits and pieces? Next week, we'll be doing a workshop with the School of Social Work at a university where they are looking at what is their particular contribution. So you have these issues around teaching. The other thing, though, when we look at bringing sustainability into the university, if we look at research and community service, the other two great ones, some universities now are prioritizing research that will address sustainability issues. They're realizing that the future, all these sustainability issues are greatly going to influence the economy of the future. And you are shortchanging your students if you are not taking this into account. You know, this is important. The idea of others, of using your university as a living lab, especially if you're looking at it through eco-efficiency. Many universities, my university is a community of roughly 50,000. But we know every bit of energy we use, we knew the water we use, we know the tonnage of the food that comes on and off campus and so on. So using this as the university as a living laboratory. And making sure that in the research questions that are brought up in theory bring in sustainability issues. And this should go right across the campus. In any university that does not address sustainability in their heating, cooling, ventilation, and so on should not be allowed to give a degree. If you're not smart enough to use HVAC as a way of saving money. I mean, the whole private sector works on this as eco-efficiency, largely as the basis of it. But operations around sustainable purchasing, sustainable food purchasing, these kinds of things should be embedded not only in policy, but in practice. Students should not only be taught about it, but students should see it modeled, because otherwise you can't move from theory into the reality so that students say, hey, this is not only in theory, but it is doable. In human resources, the hiring, promotion practices, not only of staff, but also of faculty and senior administration. These are the kinds of questions that need to be embedded in your human relations policy. And it was brought up that many faculty, for instance, do not either have the skills, and so in your human relations policy, there should be professional development brought in. And this is largely can be self-organized amongst the faculty members themselves, but it does need some kind of incentive. We need sabbaticals that can be given towards this. I'm trying to skip along. Another big one that may not be a great issue for Indian universities, but is for many others in the West, and that is how universities use their endowment funds, so on, where they invest it. The idea of those students or faculty who do not want to get involved, number one, even if they allow their students in their own papers they're writing and so on to address critical thinking about it, because oftentimes faculty really don't feel there's time, the crowded curriculum. They don't have time for that. Often they don't feel that comfortable in doing it, but it needs to be there. The whole thing around academic freedom is interesting. many faculty feel that sustainable development is a sellout, that we really do need to focus on the environment, right? So those are the people we need to engage, because sustainability does have many faults. Sustaining what and for whom, this was all glossed over, you know, in trying to come up with a development policy. So these are the people we need to engage to see what it could be better, not just criticizing, but also to move forward. The next sort of group of issues are those issues that relate to higher education in general. Who gets published? Where are the voices of alternative? Where do you get peer reviewers for journals that are addressing indigenous knowledge and wisdom? Because we do need to have new worldviews. We do need to have other perspectives brought in. We need to figure out ways in which our students can actually engage to be transformed, to move that knowledge from the head to the heart and to the hands. Get out there and do it. Thanks so much.
May I call upon Professor Kechi Oyasu for his insights and remarks, sir?
Well, thank you very much. My name is Kicho Oyasu. I used to work with UNESCO and then work with Okayama University. The first panel introduced what Okayama University is, and then now I finished my full-time teaching job, and now I work more part-time. But this university faculties, our responsibilities, education and research and services. And I try to combine all these three, particularly the community development, community engagement. It's part of this second panel. And as introduced in the first panel, Okayama has been the RCE for 20 years. So Regional Center of Excellence for ESD for 20 years, and one of the driving force is the schools and universities and private sectors, and also community learning centers. We call it Kominkan. So I bring the university students to those Kominkan or community learning centers where community people learn, and when we have a class, we have some short orientations and then some discussions, and then go to the community and talk to the people. And what's the life issues and what are the students' ideas and feeling. And we organize also a kind of simple way of PLA type of dialogues and situation analysis, and then come back to the classroom and then develop the action plans. So this is the course I often organize in Okayama and also in other universities too. And one of the interesting impact is after this course, the teachers, the students volunteer organizing some evening class for the adults, for example, the simple science class for the students and also adults, and also volunteer to the management of these learning centers. And particularly it is useful for the student teachers, how they work with the community, not only in the schools, but also the communities they live. So this is the last sessions, there is a discussion about competencies. So not only the cognitive part and also socio-emotional part, how do you translate this to the behavior? So that kind of experiences students get understand from this kind of participation in the learning centers. And one interesting example is one of the learning centers organized environmental checkup. So that is to go to the nearby community and also the river and also the park, and then see what's the environmental situation and the pollution situations, and then discuss what are the things they can do in the community together with the community people. So university faculties and we can facilitate this kind of dialogues between the students and also the community people. And another is to organize some classes for by the students to the community people about this environmental issues. And then some initiatives on the solar panel establishment in the learning centers. And then there is some visible impact from this kind of solar panel in the learning center. So from there, there are discussions about the climate change issues and environmental issues. So some kind of experimental learning we have observed from these learning courses. So the role of higher education institutions for the sustainable development is, well, one is research and documentations, particularly the action research type. So collaboration between the faculty members and also the practitioners, and also students can be part of it. And then document, and then it can be an academic paper, and also this is a kind of tool for policy dialogues with the local government. So this way of facilitation of this like town meetings type of things with the local government, it can be facilitated by the local facilities. And another is this, using these research findings, we can share it with the academic society, research society. In my case is Adult Education Society for promoting sustainable community and including climate change issues. And this can be also shared not only within local government, but also the national and also the international one. Last month I attended the international conference for the learning cities. Okayama City is one of the learning cities. So there are many potentials we can collaborate within the community and also expand our network in the country and also internationally. Nowadays, we are trying to have exchange programs with African countries for promoting sustainable community development programs. So it's a combination of education and research and also social services. So these are some of my small experiences from teaching experience. Thank you very much.
Dr. Presha Ramsarup to give her comments on how to create sustainable campus.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. So I come from the University of Witwatersrand, which is commonly called Wits University in Johannesburg. And I'm going to share very quickly, because I'm sure you're all trying to head out the door. So I'm going to maybe share 2 points. My research center, so I'm the director for Postgraduate Research Center, and we study education labor market relationships. So we study, and I lead the research program around environmental labor markets, and actually trying to build and understand what are occupational labor markets related to green sectors and environmental sectors. And we've been taking this work and working across the university, and that's what I want to share. So when we're asking universities, like to think they are training people for more than the economy. But of course, if we want to build sustainable green sectors, if we want to build environmental sectors, we need students that enter our universities to understand where jobs are. And the colleague raised some of it. And what we have been finding, and we've been doing some work with the engineering department, with the School of Public Health, we've been trying to look at what are the core environmental jobs here, what are the environmental specializations in the existing jobs, because you cannot treat the question in a homogeneous way. What are the environmental specializations that are related to these existing jobs? So if we look at engineers, where are they potentially environmental? If we're looking at law, where are the environmental specializations? Marketing, procurement, and so we've been doing some of that work. And thirdly, how do we actually look at building a more sustainability curriculum, sustainability enriched curriculum within the existing? And in order to do that, we've been doing two things. Is one, and I'm only going to share one, the most difficult, and we've had many examples of how you work with students and what people should do around curriculum. Let me tell you, the most difficult people are actually the academics. Because everyone wants to do their own research, everyone's interested in their own grant, and everyone talks about transdisciplinary work, but they don't, I mean, like really, they can give you the theory on it. So we tried to do two things at our institution. Our vice chancellor, we've appointed a pro-vice chancellor for climate and sustainability at the university. And what we did is we created an interfaculty environmental forum. 2 days in a year, everyone at the university, and we're a very large public university in the country, for 2 days we all come together, from the medical school to the business school to the education school to everyone, to look at what environmental research is happening within the institution and to actually map what those streams of work are and how we can draw connections between the streams of work. And over the last 3 years, since we've been starting to do it, it has actually driven, and credit to our Vice Chancellor, which is not me, but credit to him, they actually put money behind this. So what they did was they said, from this mapping of the environmental work, we will fund streams of research that bring you to work together. So you sit, and the university put up the seed funding to actually look at how they could connect the work across the different faculties. Okay, and so and we've really seen in the last 3 years how this has shifted how academics work together. And that has helped us to actually think a little bit more about and start to talk about how do we review our curricula? How do we recurriculate? So we've been using a very broad framing, which we're still working on. I mean, obviously, we're all training people in sectors because, you know, we have medical students. So we're looking at the knowledge and skills for the economic sector that we're working with and the skills for the job, if you want to call it that. Then the knowledge and skills to live, learn, and work. That's what we started. How do we live, learn, and work? Every person in every faculty. How do we live, learn, and work better? And then thirdly, how do we shift? We're a country with a huge inequality. How do we start to shift the status quo? What are the knowledge and skills that we need to start to actually move and shift the status quo? Just to give you, I think it's a work in progress, but I think that I've tried to say that academics need to start believing it and how they can work with each other to start to look at the curriculum. Otherwise, you'll get what Stephen Sterling calls bolt-on approaches to sustainability. You'll get sustainability extracts or sustainability courses being pushed into existing curricula, okay, or existing systems with very little change in the systems. That changes nothing. Thanks, guys.
May I now please call upon Dr. Anup Singh to share his experiences and insights on how to transform the campuses for sustainability and learning, transformative learning.
Thank you. Culture is the fountainhead of anything. I did some research some years ago looking into excellence of business schools, and the only factor that I found was culture of the business school. So that applies to sustainability. Somebody said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And we have evidence for that. In this country, in 1991, when we were starting liberalization, Supreme Court of India gave a judgment that in all higher education institutions, sustainability would be taught. And the task was given to UGC. So, after 14 years, UGC came out with a draft that you will teach sustainability, and this is the model syllabus. And nothing happened, right? In 2019, again UGC comes out with a letter to all educational institutions. Now you must teach sustainability, and institutions are not teaching sustainability, right? And today the situation is that the Supreme Court decision which was taken in 1991, 50% of the educational institutions are following that because the strategy is there, culture is not there, right? So that is first point that I'd like to make. Second point is that when we start focusing on sustainability, we face this dilemma that look, what is the demand from the corporates and from the students? And we find something very interesting, that there is not much demand from the corporates and there is not much demand from the students. There are few takers. And therefore, there is a cloudy culture rather than sunny culture for sustainability, at least in the context of Indian higher education institutions. And we have to move from cloudy culture to sunny culture. I have some ideas on that. The first requirement is that each campus should become a sustainable campus, right? If it is not an exemplar, students can never understand the importance of sustainability. And that's what we did at our university, that we went for accreditation of our institutions on environment, and we took various initiatives to make our campus sustainable so that students could see that, right? The second thing that we did, we realized that students from different disciplines need to have different kind of sustainability education. For example, law students need to understand environmental law. Pharmacy students need to understand the chemical aspect of sustainability. Management students need to know how to, do program management. Similarly, engineering students need to know about sustainability engineering. So the approach for each institution has to be different. And there has to be, quite a good amount of discussion on that what we are going to do. The third thing is that education can be sometimes just a waste of time. You learn it and you forget it because you don't find the venues for application. So we took one institution as a pilot study, and we said that along with education we'll go for action, right? And to be very honest, we felt inadequate that how we can put students on action, and then we came to CEE, right? And we said, can you help us, right? So the whole request to CEE was, can you take our students and teach them and take them to action for sustainability? And they took these students to various places and also to rural areas and tribal areas. And lo and behold, 80% of the students had not seen a village, and they saw a village for the first time in their life, right? So if sustainability education is not, combined with the internship or action, it is not going to be effective. Last point, that how we can connect with community, right? For that, there has to be, first a maturity in the institution, and then they need to go to community, because when you go to community, there is more learning rather than teaching. Just because, we are more educated, we think that we can go and we can teach villagers, we can teach tribals. No. In fact, when we interact with the community, there is more teaching from the side of the participants to teacher and students. So we have to have that kind of humbleness and that kind of approach, that it is going to be mutual learning process. So if we do that, we'll move from so-called strategy of sustainability education to a culture of sustainability education. Thank you very much.
May I now call upon Dr. Ravi Singh to elaborate on this idea. Thank you.
So we have more or less understood the context of students. We have understood the context of teachers and curriculum. I'm going to focus a little about the context of governance in bringing out or making sustainable educational institutions. Pardon me if I'm a little provocative, because I also believe that educational institutions are places where democracy must not be maintained, and consensus is a myth as far as leaders are concerned. If you keep on looking for consensus across your faculties, across your disciplines, across your departments, you would not be able to do anything. And therefore, at some point of time, sustainable institutions will be those where leaders drive sustainability in every aspect of governance. When I say that, I believe that a sustainable institutions will have at least three very important factors as the fulcrum of implementing sustainability inside the campus, and that would be engagement, improvisation, and trust. Both for every stakeholder in the system, whether it is industry, whether it is partners, whether it is the students, whether it is faculty. If you're not engaging, you would not be able to make a good institution, a sustainable institution. If you're not improvising continuously in order to see how the ecosystem around you is changing, you would not be able to make a sustainable institution. And unless and until you have trust in the decisions that you make across disciplines, you would not be able to make a sustainable institution. So, as a leader or as a governance problem, what is it that you ask? So, when I started thinking about sustainable institutions, I started asking 5 basic questions. That If your organization is focusing on teaching and not learning, are you a sustainable institution? If you are focusing on examination and not on outcomes, is your organization a sustainable organization? If you're focusing, if your teachers or your syllabus is focusing on what I know rather than what students need to know, are you a sustainable institution? If you are a regressive governance, not a progressive governance, and you are always trying to cut corners, are you a sustainable organization or not? In my opinion, one of the very important things that we must do is that these conflicts, especially in the Indian context, you have institutions sitting out here who are more than 150 years old. I'm talking about a very new system of universities. The 1200 universities that you have do not have a legacy of more than 30 or 40 years, a large part of it. And therefore, in this context, there are a lot of conflicts that we face almost every day. Anup Singh talked about UGC guidelines, right? And every day we, being the vice chancellors of universities, and Anup Singh will agree with me, that almost every day there is instruction from UGC or AIU or Ministry of Education or Government of Gujarat that you follow this. Without any thinking, it is going haywire. So if you're talking about sustainable organizations, we will have to remove all these conflicts first. And what is the conflict that I'm talking about? There is a conflict of, when you are making a sustainable organization, whose responsibility is it? If the brick and mortar sustainability we are talking about, is it the architects, it is the management, is it the engineers who are making a sustainable organization? As far as infrastructure is concerned, if it is a choice, the conflict between choice and a strategy of governance, sometimes you choose your own style of governance, but sometimes you are mandated that this is the style of governance that you must implement. And we are in, especially institutions in India, are still trying to balance between whether we should follow the governance structure of the statutory bodies or we should devise our own governance structure. And therefore, when in the last session, the last question that you asked, that in India educational institutions are not viable and it would not be viable, I ask, is that the right concern? If you are not viable, why are you not viable? There are examples within India itself where institutions started with a very small college, became a university, became a group of universities. So I shudder to believe that institutions are not viable. Only those institutions are not viable which are not sustainable, which have not invested in quality, which have not invested in their faculty or their students. And that is where the problem lies. Then there is a conflict of individual rights or behavior changes. We always want a sustainable organization to be inculcated new behaviors that they have not taught about in their secondary education, in their elementary education, or in their pre-primary education. And that is where, when we think that we in higher education are stunted by choice, it is only because our secondary school system has not prepared my students well, and therefore perhaps we are not able to do justice with the students in higher education. And the same thing is actually told to us by the industry itself, that you guys are teaching things that we don't use anymore. We ask your students to come work for us and unlearn a lot of things that they have been taught. And therefore, the choice or the conflict between unemployable students and higher education is something that needs to be looked at with a different lens altogether, and that is where sustainable institutions would become a reality. The last point, the conflict between part of curriculum and part of practice. We as teachers cannot shun our responsibility only by putting sustainability as a part of the curriculum. Sustainability would happen from the very first day a student enters my campus. Every aspect of the organization must revolve around sustainability. And that is where practice becomes more important rather than syllabi. Because once it is there in the syllabi, you will have examination. Once you have examination, you will say 10 questions, out of which you have to attempt only 5. So 50% of sustainability is gone over there. And then if you score only 40%, you will pass, and therefore 36% more of sustainability is gone down the drain. So only 16% or 17% of sustainability understanding would get you out of the organization. We don't want that. We want every student to be tested on sustainability practices. And therefore, what you want is that in educational institutions also, if you have learned sustainability as a part of the curriculum, and if you are passing all 100%, you are not doing justice to sustainability. Thank you very much.
May I now invite Kartikeya Bhai to give his closing remarks also, along with his thoughts.
Thank you. I've been busy writing notes because such wonderful things were said. I had started by writing what I was going to say, and one by one, when the speakers talked, I started cancelling out all those things because they've been said so well. I think Anupji's point of the culture of sustainability, I think, is at the heart of this whole thing, that institutions need to imbibe that culture. And the culture is something which is not just written by the leader or by someone else, but it is imbibed. And it's imbibed, therefore, we are not talking about only courses which are labeled sustainable, but we are talking about all courses. Sustainability is not a separate set of subjects, but I think there is nothing which you can do today which is not sustainable. Now, we've spoken about many methodologies, and I find that however much you say break silos, it is difficult, because if I'm learning chemistry, I do need to learn chemistry with rigor. If I'm learning mathematics, I do need to learn it with rigor. And to create situations where I cross that is sometimes difficult. But when it comes to solving a problem, problems don't come in those silos. So the minute you have a real life problem, you realize that I actually can't solve this if I don't know this. And therefore, I need access. Access which is available in a university in all the in both the universities we are talking about here, and I'm sure in the ones in Japan or Canada or South Africa, you have such a rich resource base which is there. But a student doesn't get to access that. They get to access it at best in their own disciplines. But if you
start with a problem, you can access others. So how do we set up a system? And this is what in Nirma what we did when we went out. We said let the students go into real life problems, and when they saw a problem, they need for this I need to actually approach someone knowing water resources, or for this I need to approach someone who needs material sciences or something else. So how do I know? I want to, we've got a problem just now of decreasing heat in hutments. And the question was, let's paint it white. I mean, that's obviously a solution. But which white reflects the most? Or someone else came up with the research saying that our old tiles give you as much cooling as the white surface. Now, is this true or not? It's something which a student can easily set up an experiment, research it and find it. And that whole thing, when you want to set up that culture, you need to have also feedback loops and monitoring. When you say, I want it to be sustainable, how do I do it? In schools, we had this whole approach of going to students about saving electricity and water, and they could actually ensure that you decrease this, because this is a number which exists. There's a bill of last year January, and there's a bill of this year January. And we got the school to say that we will give you that difference to the eco club of the school. And it worked so well that they started asking us, how many years have we to give this difference? And then they said, but if there's a lesser electricity cost, our grant gets cut in schools, so that we don't actually save, you know. But in universities, this is not the problem. Universities can actually have targets, actually have numbers, and the student community, it can all go into that student pile which is there. The point which Professor Ayusu mentioned about the community and the Kominkans of Japan is such a great institution, and I was there recently to also understand that. And I think we need to really do that. And it takes us one step further from what we do now, which is to take them to the community and coming back. Here, an institute helps set up a learning center, and so that you don't look at your boundaries. Now, what is happening in CSR and various other things, government is saying that don't look upon your institutions only what happens inside, but look at your supply chain, and how do you imply supply chain? How do you work with the villages around your factory? How do you do it? And I think the same thing needs to be at the university level, that if you have this wonderful learning center, in Ahmedabad we are fortunate to have so many, but if just the community outside has no benefit from it, I'm talking about benefit in terms of knowledge, I'm not talking about benefit in terms of other things, but knowledge, then it doesn't work. So I think that connect is extremely important. I think therefore that problem solving as a driver for learning, sustainability problems and driver for learning, is something which I thought we could really work on more, that they take on real life problems, solve it, which also they translate it into finance. So finally, just the list which I had, which as I said, I've been striking off. The first one was the campus, the infrastructure, the systems, the course itself, environment programs and other courses. How do you do outreach, research, which we had spoken about when the JESD was mentioned, that how do we get researchers to go out and connect with practitioners, the management issues, and Professor Ravi Singh mentioned about the management issues, the governance. Can we also, while there might be a clear governance mechanism with authority, can there at least be feedback to whoever that is? And what is this feedback and monitoring, visioning with the community and with the thing. Can the students be part of a vision? Can we, just like educational institutions have been told to do net zero. Now net zero is one vision, but can we have visions? Can we have goals? Can there be a sense of collective in the leadership itself? Define a collective goal for sustainability, for your own institutions and for around. So I think it's an exciting time. And as I said, And as Raviji also said, we are not really looking at feeling depressed. I think Tridip raised that as a provocative issue, that are institutions viable? I think they are viable, but they are certainly more viable if they are sustainable. And I think the two-day get-together idea of pressures was such a great idea of just saying, okay, you can't take the whole year around, but at least for that 1 day, 2 days, let us come together and think about this. Somewhat what we are doing here today. We all come together for 2 days of just interacting with each other, and those ideas will stay with us over time. Professor Hopkins' inspiration has been long and well with us, but the university as a living lab, that whole concept of a lab, that we are into a changing thing. It's not that culture changes, but the university changes. And how do you make this into a lab? So I think there are wonderful ideas from this and the previous panel, and I think we look forward to working with all of you and really taking this idea and impacting the thing. I did have a meeting with the UGC chair, and I think some of those issues we will also take up, that it's not through circulars that you can make that change, but through the culture itself and how you do it. So thank you very much. Back to Janki.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you all the panelists and Kartik Bhai for your wonderful remarks and closing. May I now, do we have time for questions? I think not. So, yeah. May I please request Kartik Bhai, if you can felicitate all the panelists with, okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Dr. Nambia mentioned about the journal. If anyone is interested in having a look, we have kept it outside just for you to have a look at it. Journal for Education for Sustainable Development. Few copies are outside. Thank you.
Yes, yes.